Well, welcome everyone. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas a todas, todos y todes. Gracias por estar aquí. Thank you for being here. Just a quick note before we start. We have simultaneous interpretation available today, Spanish, English, English, Spanish. This is made possible by our wonderful colleagues and collaborators, the Interpreters Co-op. To enable it, you must simply click the globe icon in your Zoom menu and select your language. If you don't see immediately the globe icon, you can go to the more icon, which is the three dots, and you can for sure find it there. All right, so we are so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today to our second session of the Next System Teachings Organizer Workshop Series. Our today session is called Why Next System Teachings? And while we wait for more people to join, a couple of minutes more, please feel free to say hello in the chat, to share your name, your pronouns, what part of the world are you connecting from? And we have a question for you while we settle in. Gabe is dropping that question in the chat right now. So the question is, where you are right now, what is the crisis that feels most urgent, most alive, most impossible to ignore in your community or region? What issue is the most present in your heart right now? We invite you to connect with this session, thinking about that question in your mind and in your heart. All right. And yeah, take a moment to share your thoughts in the chat. We'll be starting in a few minutes. Thank you for being early. I see some comments in the chat already. Liberia. Wow. Welcome, Janet and Jeff. Thank you for joining us. Capital city of Monrovia. Wow. Amazing. Hi, Rory. Hi, Rory. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome.
Nice to see
Thank
you
you
too.
so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah. Can't wait to meet you when you're in Montreal. Thank you, Kat. We have other people joining us. Thank you so much. Liza from Vermont, Fairfax, also Vermont. Thank you, Washington. Thank you. All right. We have a variety of places today. Okay. Chicago. Thank you. Thank you to folks of Chicago. Welcome, welcome. Florida.
Hey, Florida.
Yes. Is there someone from Colombia? Someone from South America? No, I don't think so. Okay.
Hey, Mary.
Thank you. Oh, wonderful. How wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we can start now, right, April? Are we ready? Yeah, right?
Are we recording, by the way?
Yes, I think we already started the recording. Can we check that, Gabe, please? I think we already started the recording.
Yes, I started it at 12.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right, let's start then. Thank you so much. My name is Daisy Perilla. I am the Next System Teachings Coordinator at the Center for Next System Studies. And I'll be one of your facilitators today, along with my colleague April Donner. We also have Gabriel supporting us behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly for you today. Thank you so much. A quick note again on how we'll work together in this session as facilitators. April and I will be fully present and grounded in the conversation, which means there may be moments when we're not able to monitor the chat in real time. So please don't hesitate to drop your thoughts, questions, opinions, comments there in the chat, and we will make sure to address those questions during the discussion portions of the session. All right? Okay. Before we dive in, A few quick housekeeping notes. Just a couple of quick notes. This session is being recorded. We also have simultaneous interpretation available today, Spanish, English, English, Spanish, made possible by our wonderful colleagues and collaborators, the Interpreters Co-op. A shout out to Interpreters Co-op. I think Gabe is going to share their link on the chat. To enable this service of interpretation, you have to simply click the globe icon in your Zoom menu and select your preferred language. It's that easy. All right, and there's one more housekeeping note. Later in our session, we'll be moving into a small breakout groups to make sure everyone can have the richest conversations possible in their preferred language. We have a small request from you. So if Spanish is your working language for today, please, we ask you to add the word Spanish or ES to your Zoom display name. If English, feel free also to add EN for English. You can do this by clicking on your name in the participants panel. This simply helps us to build rooms where everyone can connect and think freely, since breakout rooms do not currently allow simultaneous translations. Of course, we are proud to be a multilingual space. This is just how we make it work for everyone. So yeah. So ES for Spanish and EN for English, please. Now, okay, so thank you so much. Let's get into it. All right, to frame our conversation, I want to bring Dr. Ben Mansky, founder and director of the Center for Next System Studies, and one of the key architects of this amazing Next System Teachings program. Ben is going to take us through the history and the vision and the why behind all of this. Ben, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you're able to see the slides that I have up here. Okay, it's wonderful to be here with all of you this morning and this afternoon, depending on where you are, maybe even evening for some of you. And thank you so much, Daisy and April and Gabriel, for all your work. It's been amazing to see just how productive you've been in producing these workshops and building this next wave of teach-ins. I've been asked to speak to two questions. One of those is why Next System? And the other is why teach-ins. And so some of this will be familiar to some of you and will be new to others. And I hope for all of you, it will help us to ground our conversations and sort of exploring of what this next round of Next System teach-ins can produce. So I'm going to first start with this question of why Next System. And I'll start by recognizing that we are living at a point in a long building crisis of the world system, a crisis of the world system that has been building since the 1970s. And that is a crisis in the way that system crises always are. It's a crisis which is a chronic dysfunction of the system, which threatens to bring about that system's collapse. So in other words, if left unaddressed, this crisis will bring about the collapse of the world system, and arguably in the 2020s, we have been living through the first stages of that sort of accelerating collapse, which I'll come back to in a moment. When you're dealing with a system crisis, a crisis which threatens to bring about the collapse of the entire system, what that means is that there will inevitably be a new system that comes about. So system crises produce inevitably a new system. It's not to say that we necessarily want the system to collapse, or maybe we do, maybe we don't, but it's going to happen regardless of whether we want it to happen or not. And that new system that will eventually emerge will have its own set of logics, its own set of conditions and forces that condition life, and that everybody will have to deal with. For us, the contemporary political economic crisis of the world system is one that has taken the form of long periods of stagnation, punctuated until recently by short and relatively shallow periods of decline. And so when I'm saying that, I guess what I'm saying is that since the 1970s, we have had, as Garl Perovitz says, punctuated crises, but not a total collapse. of the world system. We've had financial collapses, we've had economic collapses, but they have not brought the entire system down. And different parts of the world have experienced this last 50 years in different ways. But what that's basically meant in terms of the experience of people around the world, including here in the United States where I'm located, is that we have not, we have not been in a position where we had to fix everything all at once, right? We had to and actually this is just what I'm going to turn to right now. That instead of sort of encountering on a global level the need for sort of a revolutionary movement, people have experienced that in localized ways. So what instead has happened is that as people have confronted collapses more locally and have experienced great hardship, they have also had some time to respond. And this is the good news, that this drawn out period of stagnation and decline opened up time and space for experimentation with all kinds of elements of a potential next system are already emerging all over the world, across the Americas, South Asia, Africa, Europe, here in North America, and so on. And there are many examples of these kinds of alternatives that people have been building, and they operate in the economic realm and in the solidarity economy movement and the growth of the cooperative movement and work for economic democracy and community wealth building strategies in different parts of the world. They operate in the digital realm with the construction of people's technology, participatory planning software like Decidim out of Catalonia, which has been adopted in Kerala and Mexico City and Paris and increasingly across the United States. It's operated in terms of the just transition movement, which has come out of the climate justice movement, people working to rebuild the economy on an ecological basis. It's occurred in the growth of the new municipalism and community power movements, which has taken all kinds of forms, including here in the United States, in significant ways. So that's the good news, is that there are alternatives. It's no longer the case that there is no alternative. There are many alternatives that people have been building in response to this sort of staggering collapse of the world system. And those offer us the possibility of an alternative world system. But they haven't yet been scaled up or knit together in a way that presents sort of an alternative at the level of our entire planet, right? They're more localized and networked. In the 2020s, we've moved into a period in which the necessity of taking on the system question has become much greater. And basically, this is more bad news. Our time for experimentation is at its limit. Anthropogenic, human-caused climate change and digitalization are proven accelerants that are hastening the world system's collapse. They produce mass dislocation, destruction of economic value. They've rendered huge sections of the world's people as disposable to the system that's in decline. And climate and technological change are together undermining national budgets. They're driving resource wars and feeding the ascendancy of fascist movements in all parts of the globe. And people are responding to this acceleration of what had been this staggering collapse of the world system in different ways. And some people are responding by building walls or lifeboats. And I think for many of us, neither of those strategies are acceptable because they don't produce a stable, sustainable, and just world system. So the reason why I say this is, putting in front of us the necessity of the system question is that we have to confront this, right? We have to confront the fact that the system has been in stages of collapse, that we have alternatives, and that something else is coming, and it's coming soon, right? And so there are many questions that we need to address if we're going to become successful in building an alternative world, the kind of world that we all deserve, one that's democratic, just, sustainable, and peaceful. And so we've been working to build next system studies in the academy and working to build community power and to support the practice of people who are working for system change on the ground in different parts of the world. And so this is what we call in next system studies the system questions that have to do with the relationship between crises of the system, the knowledge of movements that are working for system change, alternative designs, for both at the local and the national level and regional levels and translocal and so on, but looking at alternative designs and also looking at the process of system change. There's a lot more I could say about this, but what I would just leave you with is, again, this necessity of the system question, of putting the question of system change frontally, putting it right in front of people in as many places as possible in as serious a way as we can to help advance the capacity of the people of the world to collectively address this question, right? So that's where teach-ins come in. And of course, we have been in this process in which we have been building multiple rounds of teach-ins, which we'll be talking about more today. We had a wave of teach-ins, 11 of them across the Americas this past November. We are building towards a wave of teach-ins this coming April of 2027, a larger wave internationally. I'm going to end by going backwards in time. I just want to say something about the question of why teach-ins. So the idea of a teach-in as a form of popular engagement, of popular education, of focusing the attention of communities on particular questions emerged out of the conditions of the anti-war movement in the United States in the 1960s. And so the first events that were called teach-ins were a part of the moratorium on the war in Vietnam, and they were a wave of large-scale, sometimes participatory, sometimes very much sage on the stage, panel, events in which the question of the responsibility of communities and universities in particular for the US's war on the people of Vietnam was put before people. And those teach-ins were very effective in bringing many more people into taking responsibility and debating the question of their responsibilities for the US war on Vietnam. Shortly thereafter, in 1970, a huge wave of teach-ins on the environment, centering the question of ecology, took place across the United States and actually began to spread around the world. And those teach-ins became known as Earth Day. So the first Earth Day in 1970 were organized as teach-ins on the environment and ecology and the ecological question. That was the question that was put forward. In the 1970s, the women's movement organized teach-ins. In the 1980s, the out of apartheid solidarity movement with the people of South Africa organized teach-ins that were very important for movement building. In the 1990s, I personally was involved in coordinating what became known as the democracy teach-ins, which took place on hundreds of campuses around North America, that centered the question of corporate power and education. And out of that came the student anti-sweatshop movement, anti-corporate movements on college campuses, and the campaigns for free higher education and for transformation of the university that are still building across the country today. So this is a historical artifact. It's something that's been passed on to us by prior generations. There have been teach-ins that were significant more recently through the Occupy movement, through the immigrant rights movement in the United States, through Black Lives Matter, and now we're building teach-ins around this next system question. I'll end with this. What can come out of the teach-ins? Well, one thing that can come out of this process is that we can build relationships and learn from each other translocally. We connect universities and communities all around the world and take on the question of how universities can work with communities, how colleges and schools can work with communities to help society move through this process of system change and get the best possible outcome, the best possible next system. That's what next system studies is about. The other thing that we can do is we can build the capacities of communities around the world to provide the thing that I think many of us would choose for them to provide, which is to become the basis for the next world system. And this is a phrase that we've started using in a choice between global capital and the nation state, in which we're being asked to choose between those two as being the foundations of the world system. We choose communities. So how can the teach-in process help us to build community power? Now, thanks so much for asking me to play this role today. I hope that was helpful to everybody here, and I look forward to the conversations.
Thank you, Ben. I'm going to share quickly about the next wave that we just completed of teach-ins through Next System. and the Center for Next System Studies. I'll be very quick so to try to keep us on time. But we're definitely very excited and thrilled to be building on the heels of this beautiful wave of teach-ins that was held in exactly the spirit that Ben just spoke about. So we were able to support 11 different organizers and organizing teams across the Americas to host widely diverse and creative teach-ins of all different sizes and themes, but with Next System as a core question, right? And core exploration. So you can see here on the slide, we had Arlington, Virginia, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Burlington, Vermont, Chicago, Duluth, Minnesota, Fairfax, Virginia, Puerto Rico, Puebla, Mexico, Canada, right, and Toronto. So, a couple of just the themes that we saw that were so, to me, deeply, deeply satisfying and exciting was that just like we had hoped, folks took this call and this invitation and ran with it in the context of their place. So they took the framing of Next System and adapted it while not losing the core to be like, well, what are the most pressing issues here? And what's the culture here? So, for example, for myself, I came in relatively new to Chicago. I've been facilitating and organizing events for a long time, but I came in in a way as an outsider. So I spent time with the partners on my team to think about, well, what's the appropriate framing and what are the priorities here that organizers and organizations are working towards, as well as universities, right? And so we came up with the theme of community power and gathered folks from many different streams and versions of building community power, from restorative economics to community defense, right? Which is a major issue here because we just went through Midway Blitz of attacks on our immigrant neighbors. So we brought together this, very multifaceted conversation. And the theme we saw in my teach-in, among other teach-ins as well, was this excitement and this hunger that people had for addressing the systemic question and really acknowledging, like, yes, we're all working on these different things. We care about these different things. But we recognize that the issues that we're facing have the systemic root. So let's think about all of these solutions and possibilities and issues in that context. And then let's look at each other as having very important different pieces of the puzzle. So we saw in all of these different teach-ins this beautiful coherence building among people working on different pieces of these puzzle and different threads. And we also, I just want to name, we had some wonderful partners in building this wave. We had the task force that included representatives from the universities that participated, including Duluth, Minnesota, York, and University in Toronto. We had University of Vermont, of course, and we have Liza here to update us on what they're doing. And we also had some wonderful organizations that are doing the grassroots work, including the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network, Presente.org, the Democracy Collaborative, Global Tapestry of Alternatives. So yeah, we're really excited to be building towards April 2027 with these learnings and with a stronger and bigger team than we even had back then, and many more partners. So we'll be sharing news on that. Keep tuned for that on the socials about the new partners that are joining the work. I
Yeah.
will back to you, Daisy.
Thank you so much, April. Yeah, many more partners. That is the idea for 2027. And thank you for sharing all that resources and the summary of what we did in 2025. So yeah, I think I want to transition to the next session thinking about this idea of we choosing community, the idea that Ben just brought up into the conversation. I think that's one of our most important goals as a team, as a community, choosing community and choosing alternatives. So now that we have this information about the roots and the history of the teachings as such an important movement in the US, in North America, and the other many ways that we have to, the ways we name the teachings in other parts of the world, right? And well, this brings me to a very important question that I think is at the heart of today's session, and is what does April 2027, the new wave, look like from where you are? To explore this question, we're going to hear directly from organizers who are already building this amazing wave towards April 2027. We're going to do this in a kind of a fishbowl format, a few voices at the center of the circle and sharing visions. And yeah, that's going to be the first part of this conversation. I've asked our speakers of this fishbowl session to reflect on three questions. Why were you inspired or motivated to organize an existing teaching? What are you envisioning and working toward April 2027? And how do you see this helping address present systemic issues in your city or region? Okay, each speaker will have around 3 to 4 minutes, just enough time to give us a real taste of their vision. We know there's so much more to share and so much more you could say, but we hope this opens a conversation we can continue. Before I start, a quick note from the translations to please slow down when we are talking. And this is also a note for myself. I'm so sorry, Adriana and Tammy. We'll try to do our best. Okay, to begin with, let me introduce our first speaker, Matthew Epperson, joining us from Athens, Georgia. Matt is a co-op developer and the founder of the Georgia Cooperative Development Center. Matt, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Daisy and Ben and April and the whole team. So, just to help me out, I did actually create some slides, if that's okay. So it looks like I'm able to take that and present. Okay. Folks can see that all right. Great. Yeah, so again, it's just an honor to be with you all, and I'll try to move in my 4 minute time period to cover some content for here for us. And the us I'm referring to here is Athens, Georgia. So I actually forgot to put that on the slide header there, but we're in Northeast Georgia in the US South, and I thought it might be helpful to frame the question of, what time is it on the clock of the world as we are here in Northeast Georgia? And when I thought and reflected on that question, the thing that jumped out at me is that in my context of a university town in the US South, we've really only sort of started to begin with the process of reckoning with, so for example, urban renewal. So this example here is some recent efforts that we've had whereby we've started to actually dig into more of the history of urban renewal, of displacing our Black communities here in Athens, Georgia. And at the same time, the response has largely been one driven by very existing nonprofit organizations and also with a lot of alignment with, city council, and has kind of created what I consider sort of a more nonprofit industrial complex and city-based kind of, frankly, non-solutions to the areas like reparations and actually reckoning with our histories. And as you can see, I thought it was kind of funny that on the website of the Center for Racial Justice, you can see exactly the publications that are picking up on it. These are very traditional news outlets, right, where we're trying to tell a very top-down story about what justice could look like. And I would say that in my time in Athens, I've seen this play out over and over again, that this is often the way that we think of it, is just start a nonprofit, and we frequently lack a deeper or critical lens upon the change process. And actually, this is our mayor you see in the photo here, just below Town Lane. So we created a street label to commemorate the fact that now there's a parking deck where there were once Black families. So that's just frequently the process. But I will also offer that here in Athens, we are also beginning to envision more of a solidarity economy and truly a next system approach. And so one of the groups that was mentioned I'm associated with is Hive Mind Community Investment Cooperative, where we are looking at, for example, in particular, displacement in the form of affordable housing and trying to respond to the encroachment of private equity, which has in many ways moved into Athens, displaced residents, begun to refuse Section 8 vouchers and other ways that housing could be made affordable here in the name of increased rents and return on investment for investors. And instead, we can envision a community process of ensuring permanently affordable housing for ourselves using a more of a next system lens. And that's how I would offer what Hive Mind is envisioning, which you can see here, the way we speak about ourselves, right, is that we're building a solidarity economy to uplift and transform our community through permanently affordable housing, intergenerational healing, and interventions that improve the life for queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, particularly in Northeast Georgia. So I would also offer, as with the old adage, hopefully as goes the South, US South, goes the nation, that we could have this positive ripple effect, such as we saw last year with the Resist and Build Summit, which is where I got to meet many of you fine folks for the first time, coming to Atlanta, as also like just sort of this hub, right, of like what is possible with next systems. And we take this particular example also of the Carnival Beyond Capitalism, which is one of the structures that came out of the Resist and Build framework, as a lot of inspiration. And so the way that we want to kind of implement that in 2027 is also kind of framing it within this kind of global perspective of what it might look like to have a donut economy and address all these different sort of systems that Ben was hitting upon of like we see systems failure in all these different areas like water, food, health, education, etc. So right now the process we're sort of in is like mapping on organizations that exist in Athens to who's actually in a position to do the work for repair in all of these different types of systems. And we want to do that with a structure kind of like a thing called Porch Fest, which is like a really well-known music festival here in Athens where people just sign up and they offer their porch for a band to come perform. I think it creates just like an amazing, like distinctly Southern and of place kind of solution whereby we'll have Next Systems pop-ups all over the city on the porches of our neighbors. So it's also part of neighborhood organizing as well. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing all those pictures and initiatives. They are all amazing. A lot of smiles on those pictures. That is always a good symptom that we are building like supportive and good next systems for our communities. Thank you so much. Amazing work. Now, I'd love to bring my dear friend Liza Macambore from the Leadership for Decozoic program. She's a Leadership for Decozoic. Oh, sorry, I lost you for a minute. Okay, here you are. She's a Leadership for Decozoic fellow and part of the incredible team at the University of Vermont. Liza, take it away.
Thank you, Daisy. I wasn't so organized as Matt to put my slides together, but I just have sort of one slide with points, which was meant to like guide my my talk this morning. So let me first say thank you to the Next Systems sort of facilitators and leaders for bringing us together once again. I'm just going to approach this from like sort of maybe in a chronological order, what motivated me, and then, why did I sort of respond and get inspired to work towards the Next Systems teaching here at UVM. And then we'll end with sort of the visioning part. So thinking about the future and April 2027. So initially, I think my motivation for getting involved came in because I do not only see myself as a scholar, but both a scholar and an activist. So sort of scholar activism. And coming through to do my PhD studies here at the University of Vermont. So I literally moved from South Africa to Burlington, Vermont in August 2022. And I think also Ben mentioned a little bit about teachings in South Africa and the anti-apartheid movement and the history behind, the democracy of South Africa, how it was born in this sort of collective, teachings from the grassroots upwards, and it being so non-violent, but resulting in a constitution that is the most democratic, if I'm not wrong, out of every other country in the world. So coming with that background and then coming to UVM, really motivated by this systemic crisis around climate change and the climate crisis, which also speaks into the poly-crisis as a whole, right? So the economic crisis is embedded in there and all the other crises that we can think of, but really thinking a lot about the climate crisis. And I always tell people that my inquiry, like generally for my PhD, is really motivated by one last event that I attended, which was the death of my husband's niece's child, they were so they were homeless, and the homeless in South Africa will go and build what are called squatter camps, which are makeshift type of housing. And they normally do it in undesignated areas. So this was like on a floodplain, and the floods came, and that woman, who's my husband's niece, tried to escape the floods and go up the tree with 2 kids. So I don't know how she was going to do that, but one of the child slipped away and ended up drowning. So I remember attending that and really questioning this climate crisis and the social and ecological exchange between the global north, global south, and how the most vulnerable are being most impacted by, climate change. So anyway, bringing all that, I ended up being here at UVM, and I attended the Next System Convergence that happened at Pocantico, and I was really motivated to join in, and I'm like, these are my people. For those who came in a little earlier, you heard the music. There was, really building up of community and songs, and whilst also really engaging in the crisis that we face today, has been alluded earlier on. So it led me to be part of the greater group at UVM, led by the Leadership for the Ecozoic, where I'm doing my fellowship, to organize a Next Systems teach-in, which we did, and it was a resounding success. And I think our approach was highly influenced by the positionality that UVM has, which is both contradictory, but in some ways also aligns, because it's a land grant university. It has an obligation to community. It has an obligation to, being a land that was sort of unjustly, taken from the indigenous people of these lands. So there's so many, facets of UVM. So when we were organizing that, we were very much aware of UVM's positionality, being part of the system, being part of the root causes, but also, also being a solution in a way. And also, I think because of my background at the University of Cape Town and my scholar activism, having started, there, always seen, the university sort of bringing people and saying from outside and saying, how do we think about this? How do we build together? So that's the approach we took. And we started by applying for a small grant from a sustainable fund, which enabled us to engage 3 interns over the summer, who then really thought about how to, do the 3 days. I think we did a 3-day summary, 3-day sort of sessions of the teach-ins. And we also sort of started from broadly, what are the crises in Vermont? The ones on the top were migrant justice, things like food sovereignty were key here in Vermont. Vermont is all about agriculture and food. So that one had to be like, central. We also spoke of the housing crisis in Vermont and generally sort of the land crisis as well. And then we came up with key themes of what we were trying to then, bring people together about. And also aligned to that, we also came up with a list. We were so shocked. We came up with all these collaborators who were community-based that we were going to work with. Some who are also part of the Next Systems family, in general, like Michelle and them, I think they're with Corporation Jackson, if I'm not mistaken, but we were working with people across Vermont, and also the likes of David Boyler, who's I think writes a lot on the commons and building sort of the commons types of thinking. We had a lot. We had our very own Eleanor come through, Finney, as well, talking about social ecology. So the themes drove us to then, who do we partner with? Who do we do the Next Systems teach-in with? And I should say it was really not only well attended, but really really engaging, and we made it to really resonate with the culture of Vermont. We had social sort of type of teachings. We had more practical teachings. We had this fishbowl type of scenarios. So many sort of forms of how people can engage. And we invited, throughout from the northern of Vermont to the south. We also had people with social movement builders who give skills like how to make a zine, about the crisis, how to communicate better, and so on. So I think that's where we ended up with. It was a very good experience for me, both as I also took the internship as well as also managed to facilitate a session on social movements and organizing. And I did it in collaboration with a community organization here in Vermont. And then lastly, the vision is to really think about how we can institutionalize social next systems studies at UVM to bring it, to make it a home here. That's what we are thinking. So whatever we are going to do in terms of next systems teaching has to really feed into that broader vision of having that at UVM. Yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liza, for bringing all these stories from the ground and these reflections so important for our community. Thank you so much. All right. We are a little behind on our schedule, but thank you all. It's very inspiring to hear these visions for April 2027. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Liza. All right. And now I'll pass it to April for our next session.
Great. So yes, we have GMU on the lineup, but we're going to be letting you hear about them maybe in a future workshop and the great organizing that they're doing just for sake of time. We wanted to make sure that we kept our promise that this is a participatory workshop, not just you listening to talking heads, as beautiful and interesting as all these talking heads are. So we want to have some breakout sessions to really give you a chance to meet one another, right? So this is not only the teach-ins work is not only about getting folks more connected in their local places around these questions, but also it's globally linked, right? So even these workshops are an opportunity for us to be weaving this next system together through relationships and getting to know each other and each other's experiments and learning. So we're going to do some breakout sessions, and the intention is to give each of us some space to start imagining and thinking about, what might a teach-in look like in my place, or if you already got some planning underway, let other folks know what it is and get to the new stage of thinking and maybe get a little bit of insight from others that can inspire you to move along in your planning. So we're going to do quick breakouts. We're going to do groups of 3. I love triads as inspired by the small group work of Peter Block and other great folks in Cincinnati. So we'll have about 12 minutes for these breakouts. There'll be 3 folks, so you'll have about 4 minutes each to speak. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but it'll be, just enough that can leave you wanting more and you can keep in touch with each other afterwards. So we're going to be breaking out. You'll get an invitation. The prompt that we invite you to think and share about with each other is calling back to the invitation at the beginning of the session. So thinking about that issue that you named that's really on your heart in relation to your place. Who in your community, in your town, in your region, on your campus, right? However you want to interpret that, is already building something different, even if they don't call it a next system. Who's working on an alternative that's really systemic? And what does that look like? And then also to think about how might a next system teach-in and the process of organizing one help you advance your community or your campus in addressing that issue or other related issues. Okay, so we're going to put that in the chat so you have it with you when you move into your rooms. And we'll have 12 minutes. You'll get a little notice when you've got 1 minute left so you can wrap up. And of course, let the folks know in your breakout room. You can share, your name and where you're joining from, so you get to know each other a little bit. Welcome back. Hello, hello.
Meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back, everybody.
Was that 12 minutes?
Sorry, I think we gave you less time than promised just because of time's sake. Also, if everyone wouldn't mind just muting So we have good, clean audio. Our plan was to have way more time to unpack and hear from everyone. Just what was really striking you from your conversations, anything you wanted to highlight. Wanted to welcome you to put that in the chat instead, so we can hear from some of the cool ideation and exchange that might have happened. So the question is really what struck you from that conversation. So feel free to share what what came up for you around your thinking about a teaching in your place, but as well as what someone else might have shared that really inspired you, or some patterns you noticed, or a great connection you made. So just, what was exciting and alive for you from that conversation. And I would like to invite everyone to stay for 15 minutes after the hour. We had some overflow time planned. If you have to go, of course, thank you so much for joining us. Stacy's going to share a few final words, but we do welcome you to stay a little longer to share any discussions, ask any questions, share your ideas, or just hang out. So I'm going to pass it over to Daisy.
Okay, yes, thank you everyone. I hope everyone, or at least a good portion, can stay to go over the reflections. But yeah, before the official hour is over, I want to take just a moment to make this real and actionable. Everything we have explored today, the framework, the history, and the visions, all point toward one thing: April 2027 wave of the Next System teachings. And the invitation is to, whether you are planning a teaching, thinking about it, or just discovering this program, this initiative today, there is a place for you in this wave. Gabriel will share the registration link in the chat right now. Please sign in and please look through the chat, see if there's someone from your city or your region who you can connect with to start maybe a coalition or to organize a process. Reach out to us also, and we'll help you connect you. If you have signed in for to be an organizer, you will be added to a listserv. So you will be able to share resources with other organizers and be in contact with them and with our living web of organizers and weavers. And for those of you who want to keep organizing and building, the next workshop series, the next session of the workshop series is on August 28th. We'll be getting into practical first steps for organizing your teaching. So mark your calendars. Gabriel is also going to share that registration form in the chat. We also would like to share a list of resources and tools our team and community is developing to support you, organizers. And it's been such a privilege to be in this space with you all. Okay, April, take it away.
Awesome. So thank you all so much. We will be sharing the slides as well. There are a few resources on the final page for you to explore. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I think I clicked on a link. Sorry about that. I think you can still see my my image. So we're at the hour. Please feel free to stick around. But if you need to leave, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you at the next workshop or also hearing from you. And yeah, I want to open it up now. If anyone has any questions or reports you're excited to share verbally, I'm seeing all this beautiful patterns and reports in the chat. So thank you for that. I'm really, really loving it. So yeah, feel free to raise your hand. If you are having any technical difficulties, you can put your question or idea in the chat, but we also welcome you to unmute and share your voice with us.
Matt, and then Robert.
Hi, this is very exciting. So I'm actually at Loyola University Chicago in the sociology department. So I'm eager to plug into what's already going on in Chicago. The other thing is I am looking to claw my way out of academia. I'm in a dead-end, non-tenure track position. And yeah, just seeing the state of academia is getting more and more distressing. But yeah, I am setting myself up to become an independent content creator on blogging on YouTube, talking about this sort of thing. talking about next system related stuff, and also the other things I have expertise in, like movement building, globalization, sweatshops. So I would love to cooperate with people, people doing, I'm at the don't even have the sites up yet. I'm at the very early stages, but as it progresses, I would love to have like the opportunity to interview people doing this work on the ground and share what they're doing what more widely with the whole world, because this work is just so critical and so few people know about it. And we are so screwed if more people don't know about it and take action on it.
You're speaking my mind. Thank you so much, Matt. So if you want to if you feel comfortable putting your email in the chat, I would just welcome if anyone might like to connect with you around your new content creation journey. That would be wonderful, and we'll definitely follow up with you. I know there's a lot of people we could probably name who we work with closely that would make great interviewees. So Robert, I think was next.
Hey there. Yes, thank you for taking my question. I've been following the space for a while, and so I feel like I'm perhaps a little bit further ahead of the April timeline, and that I would still like to kind of continue with the momentum that my community's built, but wondered how I could still feel like I'm part of this wave, and stay in touch with this community.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's a wonderful question. I know a lot of folks have been bringing that up. It's like this is such a time of urgency. And like you said, if you're already building in your place, there's probably momentum that you don't want to just wait until April 2027. And for the interpreters, I'm sorry, I will slow down. Just one thought, and I'd welcome other thoughts from the room. We've been seeing folks who are planning things in the interim between April 2027 and naming that, this is part of a build up towards an April 2027 teach-in. So Catherine Millen, who's was one of our wonderful partners, University of Minnesota in Duluth. So they had a follow-up from their teach-in that brought together folks who were interested in building a solar commons. And it was with many different municipalities together, but they plan to come back together in April of 2027. So they held like a community summit, but then had this nice check-in point that would be, basically part of their next system teach-in. And she reached out to us and said, hey, is it okay to link this? This would actually help me to be linked to this larger global thing to make a case for it in my university. And we're like, yes, of course, that would be great. Welcome anyone from my team as well. We have other folks who are working on similar things here in Chicago. We have some stuff brewing for fall. And I'm working on, the same thing. Can we tie this in with this momentum towards 2027 and recognizing there's other things we want to be doing in the meantime? But yeah, anyone else from the team or the group?
Amy has her hand raised.
Amy, and if you, Amy, I don't know if you had a different question, or also if you want to speak to this, but also if anyone had any thoughts on Robert's question about building towards, in the meantime.
I guess part of what I said can add to that. So I'm here as part of Scholars for a New Deal for Higher Ed. We started during the pandemic and so we've been active for, going on 6 to 7 years now around this idea of what are alternatives in higher ed. And originally we wanted to get into the idea of federal funding and a reverse to the austerity of the constant cuts and debt reliant funding for higher ed. Now, of course, we've been running a seminar series, an online seminar series. You can find the videos of them on our website called Forgotten Pasts and Alternative Futures. Many of us are historians. So we want to say like the idea of alternatives to higher ed is not anything new. We've just kind of forgotten some of these others, and many of them still exist. Hampshire is collapsing right now, but Evergreen and Prescott and a variety of other outdoors based higher ed have been models. So what we're going to do is kind of merge what we've already been doing around these higher ed alternatives. And we've also been working with Higher Ed Labor United, which also already has momentum around wall-to-wall labor organizing on campuses and across the country, and merge what's already been
115.
doing with trying to recruit some of these folks to do next system teach-ins at their universities, to kind of enhance what they're already doing, but to now tie it into some whatever the specific goals are for the next systems teach-in. So if anyone's interested, please go to our website, Scholars for New Deal for Higher Ed. You can watch some of the webinars we've been doing.
Thank you, Amy. This is so exciting. Thank you. Beautiful. Other thoughts, questions? I know we have Jeff here who has some cool stuff afoot, but not to single you out. Fran.
Hi, Fran Belvin in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm a member of the UU Church here, the Unitarian Universalist Church, and that's my kind of connection to community organizing. We're part of a citywide group of churches that do social action and make changes through policy, elected officials and that kind of thing. Very, very effective social change thing. Anyway, two things that excite me about today is Annalise Orlek mentioned that in her group, they talked about the arts being involved to envision new systems. I'm excited about that, being an artist, and also being beyond the campuses, involving churches and community groups, that kind of thing is very exciting to me. I don't have connections with the University of Kentucky here, but I plan to make them and hopefully get somebody there involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Fran. That's so exciting. We can't wait to hear how that goes and let us know how we can support you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, ideas? What's my friend came up with this word burbulating that I really like. Anything burbulating for you? Oh, I think Jeff, I think you might be talking, but you're muted. Oh, you you're unmuted for a second. You're still muted.
Yeah.
There we go.
And how about now?
We can hear you.
Yeah. So, hi everyone from Liberia. I'm connecting through a phone. Long story, and it's been a little bit challenging, but it's working. I'm with a group of 8 young folks who have their own worker co-op here in Liberia. And we have been working together for 4 years. And we've been dreaming about starting a school, like opening a school. And there's a long story to that too. But so they're awesome, amazing young people. And they're now really ready to launch their business. But they also are dreaming of launching the school. And so part of our biggest challenge is going to be what kind of organization could own the land on which a school could be built. And we sort of have a timeline, and we want that done in the next 2 years. And I attended their business meeting yesterday after just arriving, and that was super inspiring. And I pitched to them the idea of, why don't we do this teach-in around that question? So it's at the earliest stages right now, but we're going to start talking about how can we gather people and resources to help us figure out what kind of legal entity do we need to create that would meet our vision of having community controlled land upon which a school and a place for Jetro web development to do its work. So it would be sort of like a worker co-op community partnership or something like that, so that they would have a place to work. And so that's pretty much our story.
That's amazing. Thank you, Jeff. I love and Jeff, just to let you all know, he was already planning to travel to Liberia and let us know, like, I'm going to make sure there's a teach-in happening by the time I leave. So congratulations on your success, and to your partners. This is really beautiful. And I'll just say I really appreciate the very concrete and hands-on projects that people are building in and also imagining to this big question. I think a lot of times people find the systemic thing to be a bit overwhelming. And so I think what we're seeing with so many of these teach-ins is that people are naturally grounding it in the real world issues. And Joy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, April, I want to go back to what I heard you
You're
were
cutting out a little
mentioning
bit.
about connecting the community power to. Is my audio okay? I know I'm having some tech issues here.
Being a little
Can you hear me?
You're cutting out a little bit, Joy. A little bit.
Sorry. Well, my question is relating back to protection of vulnerable communities, and in a country that is increasingly criminalizing a whole, just the vague groups, just anti-capitalist, you, you know, anti big tech, or like just paving the way for using, whether it's just lawfare in general or economic warfare, or just I'm just curious how, since I'm not in the university system and I'm more in supporting communities from the ground up, that I'm interested in weaving new infrastructure together. And I'm just wondering, it seems like there's so much repercussion to the whole economic piece and funding to universities. And, I'm just curious what folks in the university system are experiencing, and what is who's involved in the conversation around strategies for really protecting the power of the people in such a hostile environment.
Thank you for this question. I will open it up to those who are more working within universities to share their thoughts on this. But thank you for this really important question, Joy. And Matthew and Amy, I see your hands are up, so feel free to go ahead if it's in response to this question. And Daisy.
I would just say that for Scholars for New Deal and Higher Ed Labor United, we've been working with a variety of groups, and one of them is Devarian Baldwin has massive initiatives coming out of Trinity in Hartford, but also from his book Beyond the Ivory Tower, where he calls on universities not to move beyond pilots, right? So payment in lieu of taxes, I think, has been used as one of the ways universities try to get out of some of these questions. But Devarian Baldwin and our alliances with him have been around how do you get communities involved, especially around real estate. That's been one of his big priorities, because universities are buying up large amounts of low income and working class communities and not taking any of the concerns into consideration, and then providing corporations with nonprofit protections of using the facilities that are then built there. So there are scholars and faculty and staff in a variety of universities that have links. The other thing with Higher Ed Labor United is they're working with unions. So many of the union, if you move beyond the faculty union and you start working with facilities, cafeteria, campus, and other staff unions, they are local residents with like deeper roots in the community than most faculty. And so union connections can be a way to reach those populations as well. I'll leave it at that, but those are just two examples.
Thank you so much, Amy. Ben.
Yeah, thank you so much, and really glad that you were able to make it, and thanks for all your work. And I just wanted to mention that AAUP has signed on to the teach-in process as well, American Association of University Professors, which is affiliated with American Federation of Teachers. American Federation of Teachers in Massachusetts is making the teach-ins a process that they are prioritizing. I'm a member of our union here in Northern Virginia, and we have been involved in organizing the teach-ins. So I think, I think the question, Joy, that you raised is a critical one, and historically have been quite an optimist. But I'm honestly quite worried about conditions in the United States going into the fall, and about sort of what we might be facing. And I don't know of any other route for us forward that doesn't involve building solidarity, and building sort of community and power. So that means that our unions, all of our unions, our community organizations, our faith communities, our institutions need to come together. And so, the teach-ins are not the way for that to happen, immediately, but they are part of the longer term process. And so I think you're absolutely right to raise this question, but the alternative, to not taking it on in the way that in New Deal for Higher Ed and Scholars for New Deal in Higher Ed and HELU, Higher Education Labor United, and various unions and student organizations in different parts of the world have taken it on, is not acceptable. So we have to grapple with it.
Thank you, Ben. Daisy.
Yes, right. I know we don't have much time, so very quickly, I just wanted to highlight a very beautiful question that Annalise brought into the chat, about how this exercise of building the new system is also something that requires radical imagination. And maybe I want to end with that because it's important to know that we need to know how to do that, whether we are in campuses and communities in other spaces. I think we need to collectively learn to how do we do that? How we radically imagine another world, and how we also let communities teach us from different backgrounds and stories who have been doing that for a long time, how to do that among our own communities. So I just wanted to mention that because I think it's a very important reflection. Thank you so much, Annalise, for bringing that up.
Thank you, Daisy. So yeah, I know we said we budgeted 15 minutes for this, but I'm available to hang out. I want to make sure that we release our interpreters, so you don't feel beholden to stay longer. But yeah, if folks still have questions or thoughts, I'm available. If anyone else on the team wants to stay, please feel free, but also don't feel obligated. Any other thoughts, questions, ideas?
Oh, it's been a great teaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry and Mary. It was great having you over on Sunday. One of my, I guess one of my personal things towards the idea of building towards April 2027 is one of my own personal commitments is to have lots of parties, and just have sort of an organic space where people can be getting together and supporting each other, especially just going into the elections and what we might all be facing and needing to process, in some more unstructured social space, building community with each other. And Barry and Mary, thank you for helping with that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Liza.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you, Matt.